Good evening, Madam President.
There we
go. Thank you for the recognition. I rise with some concerns. I guess I would start off by saying about the bill that is before us. I certainly respect the comments that we just heard from my esteemed colleague, the chairman of the Government Administration and Elections Committee, and I'm sympathetic to her remarks, especially when it concerns the privacy of people in our society and the freedom of people to go about their business. But I think that we are seeing the world through very different lenses. In my view, the government is who I'm concerned about digging into the privacy of individuals. You know, these days we have the government tracking almost everything about each one of us, including, you know, what vaccines we have, or speed cameras in our neighborhoods. We're being tracked and monitored by our government about our behavior in a lot of different ways. I'm also in agreement that there are certain basic protections that employees should have, but an employee-employer agreement is a voluntary agreement. And when the parties enter into that agreement, they go in on a contractual basis, understanding the terms. And really, the confusion I have about this bill is that we already have a very, very good law. I believe that we have a very good state law and a very good federal law that governs when employers can monitor their employees and the requirements for when they are required to provide notice to the employee. And all of that's great, and I wouldn't change a thing about it, because I do think that's important, and we've got to respect the rights of employees. But where this bill goes wrong is that it creates a situation where there is a big difference between telling employees you may be monitored at work and telling them, here's where the camera is. The first provides a fair notice to the employee, and the second can compromise the very reason why the monitoring exists to begin with. So let me ask a question or two. Through you, Madam President, can I just get a sense from the good chairman how she feels this would impact the efforts that employers use monitoring for, through you?
Thank you, Senator Flexer.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, could the good senator repeat the last word of his question? Monitoring what?
Thank you, Senator Sampson.
Through you, I said for.
Yeah, whole question.
Go
Thank
ahead,
you, Madam
Senator
President.
Sampson.
Through you, Madam President. I don't want to make a leading question, is kind of my problem. I know what I want to say, but I would like to hear the chairman tell me why she believes employers monitor their employees to begin with. Through you.
Thank you, Senator Flexer.
I'm not an employer. I would imagine that employers monitor their employees for a variety of reasons, for overall safety of the facility where the employment happens is probably one reason why there is monitoring in places of employment. Also making sure equipment is used for the purposes of that place of employment and not for other purposes outside of the function of that employer. I would imagine that monitoring is also used to ensure that an employee is in fact doing their job during the workday, whether that's materials that, whether that's uses that monitor the physical facility or monitoring electronically on computers and other types of communication equipment. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I appreciate the answer. I think it's quite accurate. I don't know that the good chairman, she might have mentioned, to protect against theft or compromising of property that belongs to the employer or fellow employees, or the property of customers that might be in their care, custody, and control, and so on. So there's a lot of reasons why an employer might have to resort to having a surveillance system in their place of business. My concern here is that in the interest of protecting the privacy of the employee, which is a legitimate concern, we are now passing a policy that is very, very likely to jeopardize the ability of the employer to achieve their goal with the monitoring to begin with. If you are informing your employee that they may be monitored while at work, I believe that's satisfactory. I believe the employee now knows that there may be cameras in the office that they work in or the warehouse that they work in, and that they might be less inclined to engage in theft or misbehavior or conduct that might generate some sort of liability or insurance claim down the road. Basically, that puts the employees on notice that the employer is watching in some way or shape or form the conduct that is going on in the business. But when you change that to say, we're going to tell the employees exactly where the camera is, which is what this bill requires. This bill goes from the step of telling an employee that they're being monitored to suggesting to them exactly how they're being monitored, in what way, and very specifically. And for me, that defeats the entire purpose, because now, if you have a bad actor, if you have an employee that wants to steal from the employer or a fellow employee or a customer's property that is on the premises, now they know exactly how they're being watched. So they can circumvent that security. No problem, we will just move this box in the way of the camera, and therefore I can get away with my crime. For me, this is a huge concern. I'm also very concerned about other things simply beyond theft. There's all kinds of bad behavior that can happen in a place of employment. And not the least of which is, just suppose you got, I was a stock boy when I was in high school. I worked for J.C. Penney's. So my job was to go down to the basement where there was nobody, by the way. It was just me after hours, and grab TVs and put them on a cart and bring them up and whatnot. But sometimes I worked with another guy, and I'm not going to lie. We used to throw a Nerf football around down in the warehouse when there was nothing going on because we had nothing else to do. But the employer might not have appreciated that for a lot of reasons. We could have damaged some property. We could have knocked over some boxes accidentally. We could have done a lot of things to get ourselves in trouble. One of us might have got hurt, generated a claim for liability against our employer. And I believe that the employer, looking back on it today, would have every right to put a camera in there so that somebody could go down and go, "Hey, Sampson, what are you doing? Stop horsing around in the warehouse." But if I was told at the time where the camera was, I can fully believe that me and my fellow coworkers would have found a way to make sure that we didn't do what we were doing in full view of the camera. And that's an innocent example. But think about things that maybe are not so innocent. What if someone wants to commit a very, very serious crime, or they want to engage in workplace violence, or they want to stalk a fellow coworker, or they want to sexually assault a coworker? This is the kind of thing that concerns me about the bill that is before us. As simple as I can put it, it's not a difficult, complex concept to understand. What we're doing here is we're going from making a very reasonable statement to employees that, look, you are going to be monitored while on the job to make sure that you're doing your job correctly, to going the extra step, which is telling them how they will be monitored in a way that frankly will create an opportunity for people that are bad actors to engage in that bad behavior. And with that, Madam President, I have an amendment I'd like to offer. The clerk is in possession of LCO 5217. I ask the clerk to please call this amendment, and I be given leave of the chamber to summarize it.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
LCO number 5217, Senate Amendment A.
Thank you, Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is a very straightforward amendment. Basically, what it would do is insert after line 46, which conspicuously is a section that exempts airports from this policy that we are enacting. Presumably because airports have a legitimate need to have security protection and a legitimate need to hide where the cameras are from potential criminals and wrongdoers. I would suggest that that exists outside of simply airports. And that's kind of the point of this amendment, which would add following line 46, notwithstanding the provisions of subdivision 1 of this subsection, an employer may satisfy the notice requirements of said subdivision by posting a conspicuous notice at the entrance to the employer's premises stating that electronic surveillance generally occurs within such premises. So basically what this would do is find a balance between the existing law, which I think does a good job, and this proposal, which I think goes too far in enabling people to understand where the cameras are so that they can circumvent the security by simply stating that at the entrance, people would be warned that there is the potential that they would be under surveillance. I move adoption, and I'd like a roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you. We will have a roll call vote. Will you remark on the amendment before the chamber? Senator Flexer.
Madam President, I'm not quite sure if this is appropriate, but I would like a moment to confer about the amendment before us.
Thank you. We will have a brief recess and stand at ease.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Duff.
Thank you, Madam President. We're just going to PT this bill that we're on right now while we wait for an amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move for acceptance of the Joint Committee's favorable report and passage of the bill.
Question is on passage. Will you remark?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I believe I would like to yield to Senator Sampson.
Senator Sampson, do you accept the yield, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. When we left off, I had made a motion for an amendment, LCO 5217. I would like to withdraw that amendment. We've had a conversation and have a solution, which I hope we will get to shortly. Thank you, Madam President.
We will indeed withdraw that, and we'll go back to Senator Flexer.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, the clerk is in possession of an amendment, LCO number 5273. I'd ask that the clerk please call the amendment and I be granted leave of the chamber to summarize.
Mr. Clerk.
LCO number 5273, Senate Amendment B.
And we'll get it up there, Senator Flexer.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, the amendment before us today is the product of the intervening time from when we initially debated this bill a little while ago. I appreciate the good work and compromise with my colleague, Senator Sampson, on the amendment before us, and I would encourage my colleagues to support this amendment and support the underlying bill if the amendment is adopted. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. So we are on the amendment. Will you remark on the amendment, Senator Sampson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. I concur. The amendment that we have come up with, I believe, improves the underlying bill substantially. I'm pleased that we were able to come up with a compromise that satisfies all the parties, and I look forward to its adoption as well.
Thank you. Will you remark further on the amendment before the chamber? Will you remark further? If not, let me try your minds. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Will you remark on the bill as amended? If not, the machine is open. Mr. Clerk.
Immediate roll call vote has been ordered in the Senate. Now voting on the bill as amended. This is Senate Bill number 472, an act concerning the electronic surveillance of employees as amended. An immediate roll call vote in the Senate. We're now voting on the bill. This is Senate Bill number 472 as amended. An immediate roll call vote in the Senate.
Have all the senators voted? The machine is locked. Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 472, total number voted 36, total voting yea 36, total voting nay 0, absent not voting 0.
Legislation passes. Senator Duff.